Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, brought to you by VoteProPot.com. An anti-cannabis lawmaker in Utah has an interesting side gig. We'll tell you about the 5 best marijuana TV shows and the 7 edibles mistakes you really want to avoid when you're cooking. Also, free weed's been given out in the UK. We've got a story about that and so many other things. Today, welcome to Vote Pro Podcast. I'm Phil Adams.
I'm Jay Britton.
I'm Andrew McCready's.
And before we get to those, Andrew has an email from a listener to share with you. What do you got, Andrew?
Yeah, we got an email the other day from Nick Palladino. Now, Nick asked the following. I'd like to hear your thoughts about how chronic pain sufferers are increasingly turning to medical marijuana and CBD supplements to combat their pain, while at the same time flying blind because of uncertain legal medical clarity about the products. I'm reaching out on the behalf of patient advocacy, a patient advocacy nonprofit group called the Global Health Living Foundation, who just released a study entitled Patients' Perception and Use of Medical Marijuana. Now, he goes on, it's sort of lengthy email. I can't read the whole thing, but basically what they're saying, what the email goes on to say is that a lot of people who suffer from arthritis are trying cannabis, and a great overwhelming majority of them are getting positive results. Now, the problem with using cannabis, especially people who don't use it, who have never used it or haven't used it in years, is getting the right dosage and getting the right, whether they don't know if they want to get a dab or flower or what have you. So what I recommend doing for arthritis patients, and considering I think we got 3 of us right here, I think both of you had a lot of luck with the topical creams, correct?
Absolutely.
The bombs, yeah, the topicals, absolutely. Right. Swear by them.
Me too. If you also wanted to try an edibles, some people would say that really helps too. Mm-hmm. But what I recommend doing, get an edible and get like a 5 milligram one and start low and slow. Just do a little bit. And the same thing with a vape pen or any kind of concentrate you want to try. Just start off with a really small dose. And probably wouldn't recommend flour because one hit of a certain flour could send you over the top,
Yeah, right.
For some people, especially people who haven't smoked in a long time. So you start low. I'd suggest the creams, maybe an edible, a vape pen, if it helps it might help relax you. What else do you guys do for your arthritis?
Well, I don't really have arthritis. I just have impingements in both shoulders, and really the topical is what relieves the pain. You rub it on. It's got a little bit of camphor, kind of a warmth to it, and sinks in. And when the pain is really bad, it doesn't take it away entirely. It doesn't like numb it or anything. You kind of know it's there, but it's easy to ignore.
And how you know it's working is you sleep, right? I mean, for me,
I sleep because I couldn't sleep before.
Yeah, me too. And I have arthritis. I have pretty significant arthritis, and I've had it for years. And I've took Advil, I took Tramadol, I took all kinds of shit. And Phil's the one that turned me on to the salve, and I was like, this isn't going to work. And man, I haven't had any kind of drug over the counter or otherwise in a year because of the salve that Phil got for me. Or turned me on to, and it's great.
I would recommend, Andrew, if they want just the relief and none of the high getting, so to speak, the bombs, the topicals is the way to go.
The bomb's the bomb.
It is the bomb.
It works.
Okay. Well, there you go, Nick. I hope that helped a little bit. We'll wish we could dive into a little greater detail, but we only have so much time. But thanks a lot. And any other follow-up questions, please feel free to email us. And also, people, you might want to check out the Patient's Perception of Marijuana study put out by the Global Health Living Foundation. Just do a search on Google.
Well, folks, there's so much you can do to help in this regard. Now, I happen to live in a state that allows medical marijuana, and chronic pain is one of the maladies that is recognized under the state medical marijuana laws. But you may not be in such a state, or you may, be in a medical marijuana state and want to see adult use become legalized. There's a lot you can do, and you can start by going online to VoteProPot.com.
You can send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com or call our message line at 240-257-2441, and we'll try to put you on the show.
Check us out on social networking. Check out our Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Just do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
So this story is going to burn you guys. Your blood pressure is going to soar. Utah's top anti-cannabis lawmaker is also one of the state's largest opioid sellers. This is out of High Times by Nick Lindsay.
What?
That's right.
Wait, so he's invested in a pharmaceutical company?
Okay. He actually owns a pharmacy or chain of pharmacies. So this guy, recently the Washington Post released a trove of federal data related to the distribution of pharmaceutical opiates across the country. The stats unveil a number of problematic trends. For starters, the database shows that the country's pharmaceutical companies have sold 76 billion oxycodone and hydrocodone pills between 2006 and 2012. During that time, roughly 100,000 people have died from complications related to opioids and opioid addiction.
Not necessarily from his store, but...
No. This is general. The Post put this out as a database. And what's happened is reporters have gone in and start doing queries and searches on this database and creating, graphs and data. And what they found is pretty fascinating. Utah's top activists are demanding that Vickers, this is the guy, recuse himself from all legislation related to marijuana. Now, we've talked about Utah. Remember, guys? They passed a proposition, and then 2 days later, after the voters passed it, this guy passed legislation. They got legislation through that basically squashed it, made it shit. Right. Made it unusable for most patients. So the deal is, this guy Vickers is a dick.
So he's responsible for distributing the most deadly drugs on the market.
What's interesting about this, and one of the things that turned up when these reporters were putting this data together, through in-depth searches and analysis, one of which was on the Utah Senate Majority Leader, who is a top anti-cannabis lawmaker. His name's Evan Vickers. He's one of the state's largest sellers of opiates. That's right. This guy owns a chain of pharmacies. Christine Stenquith is the founder and executive director of Together for Responsible Use of Cannabis, called Truce. She told High Times that even more alarming is that the man is trying to prohibit cannabis from coming into his state because he's making millions and millions of dollars selling opiates. He owns a chain of pharmacies in southern Utah, distributes 34% of all the opioids in Utah in the rural county of Iron County. Victor's two city pharmacies sell even more opiates than massive national chains like Walmart. So this guy is just cashing in. So when they passed Proposition 2, which made medical legal in Utah, within days, he had this bill, HB 3001, and he got it passed through. Understand, Utah's very conservative. It's dominated by the Church of the Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, and so they have a lot of political clout. So he went to them, and he got this thing passed, which kind of, like Andrew said, gutted it. So anyway, it's a pretty disgusting story. So this guy is making so much money selling opioids. It
almost sounds, Jay, like there could be the appearance of a conflict of interest here?
Do you think?
I'm not saying there is one. I'm just saying it almost sounds like that.
Well, that's an excellent point, because that's what all these advocacy groups are calling for him to...
I mean, he's making money selling opioid drugs and preventing anyone from selling or buying cannabis drugs.
Exactly. Well, and
he's using the power of the legislature to... that almost sounds like a conflict of interest.
It almost sounds like corruption,
Really?
even. Right.
Well, also, he owns a pharmacy, so it's not just opiates. It's
no, that's true. Yeah,
that's right. It's a psoriasis cream. It's the Epidiolex. That's what he sells.
Right.
He gets $32,000. He gets a piece of that $32,000.
That's right.
Or someone could go out and spend $1,500 and buy some Rick Simpson oil and actually get better results.
The bill that he passed after the proposition passed was the HB 3001, and it's really restrictive. We talked about that, but what it does in particular, according to Senquist, who's a woman I quoted earlier, it limits the number of dispensaries and the number of patients to whom a doctor can recommend medical marijuana. Isn't that ridiculous?
So he stands to gain financially by
nothing gets by
preventing cannabis legislation. It's
fucked up, is what it is.
I got to think about that one. That doesn't sound quite right.
So, people, if you're in Utah, this should, and you're an advocate like us, you wouldn't be if you weren't listening to this show. Your feathers should be ruffled right now, man. And I would be on the phone with whoever you need to contact.
Well, there's so much you can do.
It's just a perfect example of another politician selling his soul for profit. I mean, there's people out there suffering, and they're your constituents. I mean, don't you have any concern, any empathy for them?
That's right. That's
I
right.
mean, there's people suffering, physical pain.
It's ridiculous.
Well, and becoming addicted to opiates and opioids and all that goes with that. Look, folks, we know at VoteProPot that nothing changes without the involvement and the participation of like-minded pro-cannabis individuals. We think advocacy, sometimes we think of advocacy as something that just politicians do at the State House or in Washington, But the truth of the matter is that changing laws is the job of what? We, the people. And yes, that includes you. So we need to understand the power that we possess as citizens and use it. We just leave these things to the suits in Washington or the state capitals. You're relinquishing your power. What can you do? Register to vote if you haven't already. You can go on to on our Vote Pro Pot Take Action page, and you'll find out how to do that there. Find out who your lawmakers are. Get in touch with them. Find out where they stand. Contact them. There's places you can go to find, the U.S. Capitol switchboard, your senator or congressman. Attend committee hearings. They're open to the public. That's where things happen. Get involved. And this is, the change that you can help bring because, we have the power.
And this is a perfect example of when they should do it.
Exactly.
When there's legislation and politicians like this that are obviously, in it for their own purpose.
Their own personal gain.
I don't know about the rest of you. I don't watch a whole lot of television. Usually when I'm watching television, it's usually a sporting event or some old reruns or something like that. But there are some good shows on, and particularly some good weed-related shows.
That's right. I got an article here from MarijuanaBreak.com, and they picked the 5 greatest marijuana-themed TV shows. And coming in at number 1, drum roll, please, it's Weeds, which was an HBO special starring
of course.
I like
Mary
that show.
Louise Parker.
Yeah, that was a fun show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Especially the first couple seasons.
She's something of a babe, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys, I just had the biggest crush on her. Oh,
yeah, she's cute.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a great show.
And a great actress. She's really good in the show.
Right. The next one is High Maintenance. It's a TV drama on HBO. And I've never watched it. So
I can't afford it.
Number 2. Number 3 is Weed Etiquette, which is one of the newest shows.
Yeah, I like
which is a great show.
It is.
I want to say it's on the Spice Network.
Yeah, I don't know. It's on one of the cable channels, but it might be on Vice.
Porno channels?
I think it's on Vice.
Yeah, that's a really cool show.
Yeah, it's a very cool show.
The next one is Bon Appetit, which is another good show.
That's a great too.
Where the guy he goes around and
starring Julia Child.
Well, the thing about Bon Appetit, they really get into the cannabis cuisine aspect of it, not just the edibles, but and all the different concentrates, and they smoke and try different strains, and they put things together. But they're really going into they infuse the flavors. They have like a salad course, might have oil with that's high in CBD, not really THC. And so they'll be using all different compounds, and the purpose is to enjoy the experience of and consuming it, not really as much the buzz. The buzz is part of it too, but which I like that show. Being a chef,
I do too. That's a fun show. Well, you're a chef, so.
And then the last one was American Weed, aired by National Geographic in 2012. The documentary that took a look inside the medical marijuana industry.
That's awesome.
And there's a bunch of other shows. Now these are just. I don't think I think American Weeds was a documentary one time. The other ones are a regular series.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of documentaries. Dr. Sanjay Gupta did 2 or 3 specials on CNN.
I think I saw one of those. Yeah.
Very good. There's a couple on There's a couple on Netflix too.
Yeah.
So
yep.
And it's great information if you're curious about it and you don't know much about it. These are a great way to learn things. And if you do know some things, I watch these things and I'm like big time.
You're an expert.
I've read a lot about it and I learn things all the time. I'm not ashamed to say.
One of the shows I Andrew, you're a chef. I like to cook. I like to watch some of those cooking shows. Now some of them are getting a little old, but if you want to learn how to make stuff. So I imagine the Bong Appetit is a great way to learn how to make the edibles.
Yeah, we should mention here too. We had an interview last week or the week before with Nick Morin, who's the CEO of Growers Network, and he's the creator of that show Cannacribs, which is on YouTube. It's a series on YouTube, which is I think it's the fastest growing cannabis series on YouTube, and it's really fun. So that's another one you might want to check out.
That's a great show.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Check out our episode with his interview. It's really, especially if you're a grower or interested in growing, it's kind of fascinating. So, Jay did a great job, and go online to VoteProPot.com and check that out. Speaking of edibles, there are right ways and wrong ways to cook them. Now, I remember a time when you thought you just buy a box of brownie mix and put some weed in a blender and dump it in your brownie. You might as well throw both. You've wasted both the weed and the brownie mix.
That's right, exactly.
So there's definitely ways and ways of going about it.
Well, I'm going to run this one by Andrew because he's our resident chef and he knows a lot about this. So I thought you might find this interesting, Andrew. This is out of Leafly by Bailey Ron. And this is the 7 most common mistakes people make when they want to cook edibles. And the number one mistake is spending too much money on flour for cannabis edibles. What happens is, and I actually didn't know this, a half an ounce of cannabis into a slow cooker makes about a cup of infused butter. But the key here is the ratio. It's 1-to-1. 1 cup of oil to 1 cup of ground cannabis. And the reason is because if you put more cannabis in, the oil can only infuse so much. Okay. So if you could put a pound in there, you're not going to get any more strength or any more, potency out of the oil. So that's the first mistake. The second one is throwing ground cannabis straight into a slow cooker. Andrew's talked about this before, and I learned this from him about
decarboxylation.
Decarboxylating the cannabis, right. You need to do that first. And there are the right ways and wrong ways to do that. I think you can skip this step. You can add raw cannabis to the slow cooker to decarb in the oil, but you might find that this longer oil soaking simply worsens the taste of. So, in other words, if you put the cannabis in your slow cooker with the oil, it will work. It'll decarboxylate it, but you'll get a lot more of that flavor that a lot of people don't like. The kind of grassy,
bitter, earthy, grassy flavor.
Exactly. Yeah. So
the best way to do it, you definitely want to decarboxylate it before you mix it with butter. And that best way to do that is to put it in a glass dish and cover it with aluminum foil. Is the easiest way, and then put it in an oven at like 220 degrees for about 45 minutes. Go online. There's a lot of different people say different things.
Doing it different ways, yeah.
So, but go online, do a search for it. It's pretty simple, and then you add it to your butter, and then you strain it out, and then you let it simmer for like 2-3 hours.
Yeah, what it says here is that heating and decarbing at the wrong temperatures will really screw it up.
Right,
That's what you're saying.
It'll affect the flavor, and you can burn off all the THC. What I do, I get a recipe, and I thought, okay, it calls for a stick of butter for a bunch of cookies. I'll melt the butter, I'll decarb like 2 joints worth, and I'll mix it with the butter. Then I strain it out, and then sometimes you might lose some butter some volume in that process. So I might add some fresh butter to it to bring it up to the right amount. And then I make the recipe. And when you cook off cookies or something, never cook it at 350. Bring it down. Don't go above like 220 or 320 or 325 because the higher temperature could burn off the THC.
Yeah, what it says here is you heat the oven to
you make chewier cookies out.
You heat it to 245, and you cook it for 30 to 40 minutes, and you mix it every 10 minutes.
Right.
And like you said, that you want a 1-to-1, no more than a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you have a cup of oil or butter or whatever you're using, don't use more than a cup of ground because it's waste. It's not going to make it any more potent.
And I know this is kind of a rule of thumb, and it is not even close to being accurate. But some people say with every gram of flour, you can say there's 100 milligrams of cannabis in worth of edibles, 100 milligrams worth of THC or
that's a good rule of thumb.
100 milligrams worth of cannabis compound in the butter.
One of the things the number 4 is grinding your cannabis into a powder. That's a mistake. You don't want to do that. You want to use a hand grinder, and you want it to be coarse. And the reason is if you grind it too fine, you pulverize it, and then what happens is you get much more of that earthy, grassy flavor, which you don't want. It introduces chlorophyll, is what it does, into your oil. Right. So you want it to be chunkier. So number 5, improperly straining the oil, and this is what Andrew was just talking about. You should strain it with cheesecloth and let gravity do the work. Don't squeeze it. Mm-hmm. Don't squeeze it.
Because you'll be squeezing a lot of that pulverized
exactly.
weed
When
into
you squeeze
it,
the cheesecloth, you get every drop of the oil out, but you're also squeezing the chlorophyll and the some of those tastes that you don't want, you're not looking for. This number 6 is baking too little oil in your dish. Test the oil's potency before incorporated into your dish. What they say to do is, and again, it's what Andrew just said, it's kind of trial and error. You take a quarter to a half a teaspoon of your oil, what you would call a personal dose, and you add it to the food or drink. Taste it and wait an hour. When you get to hey, that's perfect, that's what I want, then you can kind of stretch that over. However, if you're making brownies, like Andrew says, you put the amount in, you multiply it by how many pieces you're going to cut, then you cut those pieces. Then you're going to know your dosage, and that's important. That's what you want. Right. No surprises.
And of course, whenever you're cooking anything, you can always add more.
Exactly. And the last,
you can't always take it out.
The last thing, number 7, the last one, and Andrew has talked about this too, is uneven distribution of potency. And that is from not stirring it well. So, I've had that before where the corner brownie is like, holy shit. And the one in the middle is, I don't feel anything. So you want to keep it blended. So there's your 7 mistakes that are most common. So if you're interested in making your own edibles, like Andrew said, go online. There's some great stuff on YouTube. These are just kind of the 7 mistakes you want to avoid.
Well, if you're going to make your own butter or oil, the thing is you got to understand. Some people say, I take like it depends on how the kind of weed. Like a cup of some strains could be over an ounce. A cup of other strains might only be half an ounce. So you got to. You don't do it by volume. You do it by weight. First off, so you want to go. Okay, I'm just going to put. I would say no more than a quarter.
That's what they say.
A quarter ounce, I think like an eighth for a stick of butter.
Okay,
is probably about good because then you might end up. Let's say you put a quarter ounce. And when you end up getting a dozen cookies, man, those things are going to kick your. Well, going to be expensive. They're going to kick your ass. Yeah. And you don't really want that. You want to enjoy it. So I find it's good. That's why the best way to make an edibles is
once your stick of butter is saturated,
right?
Everything else is wasted after that.
Right.
The best way to do is get some Rick Simpson oil in the syringe, 1,000 milligrams.
Then you can measure it out, right?
And you put it in there. And or I put 500 milligrams in, and I get so many cookies, and
it's easy.
Or so many pieces of brownie, it's all the same. You figured out a tray by if it's put 100 milligrams in. If it's let's say you get 100 cookies, and you put 1,000 milligrams in, they're going to be 10 milligrams each, which is like the perfect dose.
Right. Gotcha.
Got a story out of Idaho. As it turns out, across the border in Oregon and Payette County, a bunch of dispensaries just opened up. Now, so a bunch of residents from Idaho are crossing the state lines to get their medical cannabis. And apparently, this is not the first time it's happened. Now, we're seeing this in Massachusetts, all these New York people are going through. People are crossing the border into Oklahoma now.
Right,
It's all because they got all. As Phil and I were talking the other day, they have the whisper states.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You have your recreational states where you can talk about pot openly, medical,
like Oregon.
Yeah, you can talk pretty much openly. Then there's the states where nothing's legal and you have to whisper about pot.
Right.
Like Idaho.
Like Idaho. You get
Keep it down. God damn it.
Right. And it's like the cops are here. Oh my God.
Busted, man.
Right.
Whisper state.
Right. So anyway, so this is happening there too. This is another example of just it's the gray market,
Yeah.
And the cops cannot sit there and there's how many roads go between these states, and how many people, and what are you gonna and you're gonna stop them for some guy has a tube with 3 pre-rolls in it, I mean, you're not gonna. It's ridiculous.
You'd have to stop every car.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, this reminds me. I went to the dispensary the other day, and I was sitting there. Imagine that, and all of a sudden. Maryland State Trooper, full in uniform, gun, badge, everything, comes walking in. And he's standing like right next to me, and they open up the counter, and he like walks into like the back room. I think it was some kind of, it's probably a compliance check of some kind. But I'm sitting there, and I'm like looking at all this weed, and I look over, and I'm like, hey, officer, I'm going, there was a day when I would have, if I had this much weed in front of me, and I saw a uniformed police officer, I would have, soiled my boxers,
And we have a few times. I remember the old days.
But that's how I actually, for a second, I thought about it. I looked at the guy and went, man, there was a day when that would have, these two would have gone together.
But you got to be honest there, that still freaks you out. Just because of our age.
I looked at it and my heart rate didn't go up.
But at least it must have startled you a little bit.
Well, it sort of went, I just sort of realized it was kind of surreal going, God, there was a day of most of my life. This would have not gone over well. I was sitting here with like 20, with all these different buds and and all the bud tenders like, hey, Bob, what's up? Officer Bob, hey, whatever. And the cop was like smiling. The cop was as friendly as can be. He was smiling at everybody.
The young people are just like, they're accustomed to it, but that's the old farts.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking. I go into this dispensary, and so you go in, you show your ID, and then you got to wait to be called to go back into the bud room. So I'm sitting there talking. They have like a counter where they sell CBD products and paraphernalia and stuff. So I was talking, and I'm waiting to be called. And I'm talking to one of the girls there, and over time I've gotten to know her. So we're just shooting the shit, talking about it. And she's like in her early 20s, and she starts talking about the art. At this point, she knows we know each other by name, and talking about the art she does, and and we're talking about music and stuff. And I'm walking out going, I think it wasn't just that they're told to be nice to all the customers. I think she's like really nice to me because I think she generally, thinks I'm a nice guy. I don't think it was fake.
That, Andrew.
Then I'm walking and going, oh my God, it's the Bernie Sanders syndrome. All these young people going, these old guys, they're cool. I like these old guys.
You have a right to smoke weed if you want to.
What do you think of when you think Idaho, guys? I think of
potatoes.
Yeah, I think of Napoleon Dynamite. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was the weirdest freaking movie. I loved it, though.
Okay, well, that was a story that really didn't tell you much more, except, guess what? People are crossing the state lines to buy weed legally. Oh, jeez. I got a story out of Texas. Now this is kind of serious. There's a Texas school district in the Panhandle, the Bushland Independent School District, that starting this coming school year, children's from 7th to 12th grade have to go in for drug testing if they want to participate in band, sit on the student government, student council, be on the yearbook
That's insane.
Staff, play chess, participate in any other clubs or sports, or any student who receives a parking permit for the school. They all have to be subjected to drug testing.
That's crazy.
Now, they were asked, going, is there a big drug grumming epidemic? And they went, no, there's no drug problem. We're just doing this to protect the children.
Wow.
Keep them safe.
Something tells me there's something other than the children's protection that they have in mind.
How long do you think it'll be till some lawyers get a hold of that? I mean, come on, somebody's going to sue the school district over that.
Well, I wouldn't allow my kid.
Way.
And plus I wouldn't want, my kid not to do something because, let's say he was smoking weed. Well, he can't get a parking permit, or he can't.
The chess club guys? Seriously?
Yeah. No, I think, that was in the article just to, I think, prove the point that it's everything. Any kind of school activity.
Any activity.
Now, I can see if you have a parking permit, they don't want you out and doing what we did at lunchtime and going out in the parking lot and get high.
Yeah.
But the chess club,
Chess club, the math club, those guys aren't smoking weed. I'm pretty sure. Say, I'm in the chess club is good enough. That's like a drug test.
Yeah.
Being in the chess club with the debate team is
We don't watch we waste the money testing this kid.
That's an equivalency. That's a like the GED of cannabis.
Right.
Wow,
that's
crazy, though.
Like
Seriously.
if the kid's in the marching band, he's a virgin.
Weren't you in the marching band, Phil?
Yeah.
You're in there? Well, isn't that true?
Well, it was when I got into the marching band.
Not so much when you left.
Not so much when I left, but that's another story.
Are you telling me that the marching bands were doing drugs and having sex?
Not the entire band. Let's just say that there was certain sections that were probably more prone to it.
Bits of the saxophone and the drumming section,
and a couple of the flute players.
Ooh, okay.
And
there's a joke there, but I'm going to leave it alone.
That's right. Well, because we all went to high school together, and Phil did. He played in the marching band. You guys went down and marched at Disneyland, didn't you?
Disney World, yeah, absolutely. Down in Orlando. It was a wonderful trip, and there was, high getting being done.
Debauchery and
other debauchery. And, but,
that's high school.
That's high school.
So what songs did you play?
We only played what for the
while you're marching
Disney
in the parade.
World, all we played was "This Land Is Your Land," and I think someone counted 41 times because we were in the parade. It was in the Disney. It was the Memorial Day parade, and as soon as you finish it, you'd start it again.
I bet you still remember that song note for note.
Well, no, I do. Yeah. Well, the marijuana market is changing pretty rapidly, and it seems like so many other industries that there is a high-end market emerging. Luxury high-end marijuana has become like its own segment within the industry, and with innovation kind of paving the way.
Kind of like wine.
Right. Or craft beer, yeah.
Absolutely, very much like wine. And like wine, California is one of the epicenters of this, and because its marijuana market is the largest in the world.
And the most established, because the California market started in the mid-'90s with medical.
In 20 years. More than 20.
Right. The legitimate legal market. So the state apparently is worth as much as $5 billion in marijuana sales at present.
Wow.
And that's fairly substantial.
Mm-hmm.
A fellow at the Brookings Institution, a fellow named John Hudak, says that, quote, luxury brands and luxury products are definitely a growing part of the cannabis industry. They're marketing to a group of people who are not traditionally seen as cannabis users, but who are willing or ready to get into the new legalization culture. They don't necessarily want to be smoking flower, he says, although they may be smoking unique strains. And this is a group of people who are more interested in trying newer products and newer vehicles of consumption, end quote. So, there's a certain amount of premiumization, as our friend Cody Sanchez puts it, where, and this is happening in the securities market as well for cannabis companies. Ionic Brands Corporation, for example, is one of the leading cannabis stocks. That's out west as well. While the company isn't located in California, a lot of their operations are in that state. And they work on producing vape products for sale in high-end and luxury markets. Another company, Zoots Premium Cannabis Infused Edibles, is a producer of very high-quality marijuana products. There's a whole group of them. And, the hands of cannabis, people who are involved in that market, the people who are making up that market are demanding, many of them, these higher end luxury strains and other products.
Right. And it's not just it's just not the flour and the oils. It's going to be the bongs and stash paper. Like there's a new, I think Raw just came out with a infused rolling paper. That has like
you don't even have to put any weed in. You just
right.
That's cool.
Smack the paper. No, but they're coming out with a lot of high end stuff. There's people out there with the money and it's also it's the bragging rights. You know.
Yeah.
I remember I was in the bar business and these people would come up and get some guy would come up and go, give me a Bloody Mary with some
super high
end vodka with high end vodka, and I'm going really you can tell over a spicy tomato juice. You can
right.
Tell
Give me a break.
I would and I remember one time the guy asked for, God, this was like years ago. He asked for he goes, give me a Jack and Coke. And I said, well, we don't have Jack. And he goes, well, just give me a Heineken. You know, in other words, he just wanted something with a name on it,
prestige.
and that's what people want. They're willing to pay for the prestige, and they're gonna do it with weed.
Yeah, you see it in wine, you see it in craft beer, you see it in liquor now. Absolutely. You know where else you see it in cannabis? The celebrities. All these celebrities are coming out with these really high end, products and companies, and whoever it is, you see it all the time.
Francis Ford Coppola, right out of the gate, he was one of the first guy, and he went straight to the top. Right for the high end. Yeah.
Straight to the premium stuff. Exactly.
And I think California is where they're selling a lot, just because there's a lot of money out there, and a lot of people, the rich people are smoking weed. And a lot of them live in California.
Yeah, that's kind of where a lot of that overlaps,
Yeah, but then you or I, people like us, probably aren't going to we'll spend maybe a little extra to get like a good quality, a noticeable good quality. Try to or get like the choice buds or the prime buds as opposed to the standard stuff. But I couldn't see us paying $800 for an ounce of something just because it has some name.
No way.
I could see us going, I'm going to spend an extra $250 for, a nice vapor, like a really good vape
mod,
volcano unit or something, or something like that. So it's not just the weed; it's going to be all different products people are going to be spending more on because you can get a bong for $25, or you can get one for $25,000.
Moving from Western United States to Northwest England, there is a growing calls in the United Kingdom to legalize recreational marijuana. Parliamentary officials suggesting it could be done in the next 5 years. They don't seem to be in too big of a hurry, but there are some who are not willing to wait. In fact, there was a pair of blokes, or they might have been chaps, I'm not sure. They're either blokes or they were chaps.
Mates.
Both wearing masks, were filmed in Manchester, England, this past month, doling out free cannabis to passersby.
Wow!
And they did a video, and they had a big green and white sign that said "Free Bud souvenirs." And as the footage of this video plays out, as you would expect, these guys, two Manchester fellas were pulling out one marijuana bud after another, and the group around them was getting in the park goers are getting larger and larger. Apparently, they reportedly passed out 800 pounds.
What?
That's not the weight, 800 British pounds sterling, I suppose, worth of, which is about $980 worth of free weed.
Damn, that's a lot of weed.
And, yeah.
3 ounces probably, 2, 3, 4 ounces.
There you go.
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah, so
the cops didn't do anything?
Well, the guys had masks on, and I guess, they said, well, one of them said, quote, you can't arrest a character with you can't arrest a character made up name and no face. Outlaw lawyers are right on top of their game, the anonymous individual said, adding that
Harry Potter was there?
No, that was Dumbledore.
How would Ringo say that?
I don't know. He said, we question UK laws and legislation and like to test the authority. This outlaw number one told the news. He said, quote, until somebody can convince us that there's a legitimate reason for cannabis to be illegal, we'll keep doing what we're doing and keep pushing the barrier regardless of the law. So, well done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Old boy. jolly good. Keep up the good work. What?
You sound like some rather articulate Manchester United soccer hoodlums.
Yeah, no kidding.
Football hoodlums.
Probably more of a Cockney accent, though, you know?
That's your cue, Phil.
That was a setup, Phil. That's your cue.
Oh, no, that is, no.
Not
You got, if you want me to perform anymore, you got to throw me a fish.
Fair enough.
Well, folks, thanks again for being part of our day. No, wait a minute. For us being part of your day. Anyway, we're part of each other's day, and kumbaya and all of that rot. If you want to know more about what's going on in the world of cannabis, we can only cover so many issues and articles. Check us out on our social media. Go to Facebook and LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. We got all that stuff up there, as Andrew likes to point out at the end of each show. But there's a lot of stuff, and it's pretty interesting, and some of it's damn funny. And you can also make your views known. Go down to the bottom of the show description. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. Ask us a question. Make some suggestions. Correct the record if you need to. There's all kinds of things you can do. Check us out, as usual, at VoteProPot.com.
Or send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com.
And check us out on social networking. Please leave a comment and also like us and follow us. We'd really appreciate if you do that. So check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Just do a search for VoteProPot.
Sunday afternoon, like little birds on a cable, condemning forbidden fruit, but slipping it under the table. The table. Friday after school, Daddy's out with the boys and he's sipping a gin and juice right after telling the kids that it's poison. It's poison. You can tell me all about it. Show me what you're trying to prove. You can build your world around it, but that doesn't make it true. He doesn't have a clue, but he's telling you where to find it. Looking for something new. Same old place that he's